Innovations resembles mutation. ஹாஃப்மேன் என்ன சொல்றாரு அப்படின்னா, இனோவேஷன்ங்கிறது நம்ம பாடிக்குள்ள இப்ப ஏதாவது ஒரு வைரஸ் வந்துச்சு அப்படின்னா, த பயாலஜிக்கல் ப்ராசஸ் தட் கீப்ஸ் ஸ்பீசஸ் எவால்விங் ஸோ தே கேன் பெட்டர் கம்பீட் ஃபார் சர்வைவல். நம்ம சர்வைவ் ஆகிறதுக்காக அது போராடும். இப்ப வேற வைரஸ் வந்ததுனா தான் அதை அப்போஸ் பண்றதுக்காக தான் நமக்கு சளி பிடிக்கிறது, ஃபீவர், எந்த வர வைரஸா இருந்தாலும் சரி, கொரோனா வைரஸா இருந்தாலும் சரி. ஸோ அதே மாதிரி தான் இனோவேஷன்ஸ் இருந்தாதான் வி கேன் சர்வைவ் இன் த ஃபீல்ட். ஸோ அந்த அளவுக்கு survival is very much important. Hence, it is central for us to make our education consistently innovative and focus educational innovations on raising the quality of learning at all levels. Though there is a good deal of ongoing educational research and innovation, we have not actually seen a discernible improvements in college graduates' achievements to this day. Innovation அப்படின்னா ரொம்ப பெரிய ஹை லெவல்ல திங்க் பண்ணணும்னு கூட அவசியம் இல்லை. ஃபர்ஸ்ட் ஸ்டார்டிங்ல பீயிங் அ ஸ்டூடெண்ட், ஒரு ஸ்டார்டிங்ல சொசைட்டில இருக்கிற காமன் பீப்புள் என்னென்ன விஷயத்துக்கெல்லாம் சஃபர் ஆகுறாங்களோ அதுக்கு நீங்க இன்னோவேட்டிவா ஏதாவது கொண்டு வர முடிஞ்சது அப்படின்னா தட் வுட் பி பெட்டர். ஃபார் எக்ஸாம்பிள், இப்ப பீயிங் அ ஒர்க்கிங் விமன், எங்களுக்கு சண்டே ஒரு நாள் தான் லீவ் கிடைக்குது. இப்ப வீட்டுல இருக்கிற ஃபேனை கிளீன் பண்றதுங்கிறது, அதை கிளீன் பண்றவங்களுக்கு தான் தெரியும் அது எவ்வளவு கஷ்டம் அப்படிங்கிறது. அதுல இருக்கிற டஸ்ட் நம்ம நிமிர்ந்து பார்த்து கிளீன் பண்ணணும். சப்போஸ் தெரியாம பேசிட்டோம் அப்படின்னா எல்லா டஸ்டும் நம்ம வாய்க்குள்ள போகும், எல்லா ப்ராப்ளமும் இருக்கும். அப்ப அந்த இடத்துல ஒரு சொசைட்டில இருக்கிற காமன் பீப்புள் சஃபர் ஆகுறாங்க. நார்த் இந்தியன் ஸ்டூடெண்ட் கம் அப் வித் சொல்யூஷன். இதுக்கு அந்த சீலிங் ஃபேனை ஸ்லைடிங் மெக்கானிசம் யூஸ் பண்ணி என்ன பண்ணிக்கலாம், கிளீன் பண்ணும்போது நம்ம அப்படியே அதை கீழே இறக்கிட்டு கிளீன் பண்ணிட்டு அகெயின் வி கேன் ஃபிக்ஸ் இட் ஆன். அதுக்கு ஜஸ்ட் ஒரு கண்ட்ரோலர், கொஞ்சம் ப்ரோக்ராமு, அதுக்கு ஒரு இறக்கிறதுக்கான ஒரு மெக்கானிசம், அவ்வளவுதான். ஸோ இது சிம்பிள் இனோவேஷன். இந்த மாதிரி நம்ம திங்க் பண்ணோம் அப்படின்னாலே we can create more number of innovations in our practice. So our education badly needs effective innovations that can help produce the needed quality of high learning outcomes across the system. So innovation in education are regarded along with the education system within the context of societal super system, demonstrating their interrelations and interdependencies at all levels. So rising the quality and scale of innovations in education will positively affect and benefit the whole society. Now, let's identify the barriers to innovation and potential directions for effective innovations and the current status of innovations in our education, what educational innovation is, and how innovations are being integrated in HEIs, why innovations do not always produce the desired effect. நம்ம எல்லா நேரமும் நம்மளால இன்னோவேஷன் கொண்டு வரும்போது கரெக்டா நம்ம நினைக்கிற எஃபெக்ட் வராம போகலாம், சரியா? And what should be done to increase the scale and rate of innovation based transformation in our education system? Let's all see all those things. The National Innovation and Startup Policy is actually created in 2019 for students and faculty of higher education institutions, which will enable the institutes to actively engage students and faculties and staff in innovation and entrepreneurship related activities. And these framework will also facilitate MHRD, that is Ministry of Human Resource Development, in bringing uniformity across HEs in terms of intellectual property ownership management, technology licensing, and the institutional startup policy, thus enabling creation of robust innovation and startup ecosystem across all HEIs. HEI is nothing but higher education institutions. And the preamble vision of this NISP is actually in November 2016, All India Council of Technical Education released a startup policy document for AICT approved institutions to address the need of inculcation of innovation and entrepreneurial culture in higher educational institutions. The policy primarily focused on guiding the AICT approved institution in implementing startup action plan of Government of India. Subsequent to the release of this startup policy by AICTE and further interaction and the feedback received from education institutions, a need was felt for a more elaborate and comprehensive policy guiding document which could be applicable for all the HEIs in India. And actually the 15-member committee, including AICT chairman Professor Anil Sahasrabudhe and professors from IIT, NIT and so on, was constituted by MHRD to formulate detailed guidelines for various aspects related to innovation, startup, and entrepreneurship management. And this committee deliberated on various facts for nurturing the innovation and startup culture in HES, which covered the intellectual property ownership, revenue sharing mechanism, norms of technology transfer and commercialization, and equity sharing, and so on. So after multiple round of meetings, this policy, that is the National Innovation and Startup Policy, was framed in 2019 for students and faculties of HES. And now let us see about the National Student and Faculty Startup Policy 2019 elaborately. Actually, India aspires to become $5 trillion economy by 2024. To reach this mark, it needs to evolve systems and mechanisms to convert the present demographic dividend into high-quality technical human resource capable of doing cutting-edge research and innovation and deep tech entrepreneurship. The National Student and Faculty Startup Policy 2019 was a guiding framework to envision the educational system oriented towards startup and entrepreneurship opportunities for students and faculties. The guidelines provide ways to Indian HEIs for developing entrepreneurial agenda, managing intellectual property right ownership, technology licensing, equity sharing in startup and enterprises established by faculty and students. And in India, innovation is still not the epic center of education. In order to achieve the cultural and attitudinal shift to ensure innovation and startup culture is the primary fulcrum of our higher education system, the policy framework and guidelines of the need of this are. So, this is the important innovation and startup. And these guidelines will enable institutions to actively support their faculty, staff, and students to participate in innovation and entrepreneurship related activities, and thus encouraging students and faculty to consider startup and entrepreneur as their career option. This is career option faculty and students by using these policies. And these recommendations and guiding principles will also help HEIs in creating their own policy framework if required. Moreover, these guidelines will facilitate Ministry of Human Resource Development in bringing uniformity across HEIs in terms of IPR ownership management, technology licensing, and institutional startup policy, thus enabling creation of a robust innovation and startup ecosystem across all HEIs. And these guidelines will also help emphasize that the entrepreneurship is all about creating a business which is financially successful. Now, let's see some of the facts of NISP. And now let us see the strategies and governance of NISP. Entrepreneurship promotion and development should be one of the major dimensions of the HE's strategy. To facilitate development and entrepreneurial ecosystem in the organization, specific objectives and associative performance indicators should be defined for assessment. Implementation of entrepreneurial vision at the institute should be achieved through mission statement rather than stringent control system. The entrepreneurial agenda should be the responsibility of a senior person at the level of dean, director, or equivalent position to bring in required commitment and must be well understood by the higher authorities. However, one must understood that promoting entrepreneurship requires a different type of mindset as compared to other academic activities. Therefore, this person should be very carefully chosen from someone who understands the industry and above all business. And the next is resource mobilization plan should be worked out at the institute for supporting pre-incubation and incubation of infrastructure and facilities. Sustainable financial strategy should be defined in order to reduce the organizational constraints to work on the entrepreneurial agenda. And investments in the entrepreneurial activities should be a part of the institution financial strategy. Institutions are minimum 1% of fund of the total annual budget of the institution should be allocated for funding and supporting innovation and startup related activities through creation of separate innovation fund. And the strategy should involve raising funds from diverse sources to reduce dependency on the public funding. நம்ம வேற இடத்துல இருந்து நம்ம என்ன பண்ணணும், ஃபண்டிங் வாங்குறதுக்கு ட்ரை பண்ணணும். ஃபார் எக்ஸாம்பிள், bringing in external funding from government such as PST, DBT, MHRD, AICTE, and CSIR, and so on. So many funding agents are available. So government and non-government sources should be encouraged. Right? And to support technologies or incubators, academic institutes may approach private and corporate sectors to generate funds under CSR operation, that is Corporate Social Responsibility, as per Action 135 of the Company Act 2013. One institute may also raise funding through sponsorship and donations. Institute should actively engage alumni network for promoting innovation and entrepreneurship, that is INE. For expediting the decision making, hierarchical barriers should be minimized and individual autonomy and ownership of initiatives should be promoted. Importance of innovations and entrepreneurial agenda should be known across the institute, and it should be promoted and highlighted at institutional programs such as conferences, convocation, workshops, and so on. And student and faculty startup policy and action plan should be formulated at a university level, which is in line with the current document along with the well-defined short-term and long-term goals. Micro-action plan should also be developed by affiliated institutes to accomplish the policy objectives. Then, institute should develop and implement INE strategy, that is Innovation and Entrepreneurship Strategy, and policy for the entire institute in order to integrate the entrepreneurial activities across various centers, departments, faculties within the institutes, and thus breaking the silos. And the product to market strategy for startup should be developed by the institute on case-to-case basis. And development of entrepreneurship culture should not be limited within the boundaries of the institution. HEs should be the driving force in developing the entrepreneurship culture in its vicinity. And this will include giving opportunity for regional startup, it may be within regional, social, and community level. So it can include the opportunity for regional startup, provision to extend facilities for outsiders, and active involvement in the institute in defining the strategic direction for local development. Strategic international partnership should also be developed by using bilateral and multilateral channels with international innovation clusters and other relevant organizations. Moreover, international exchange programs, internships, engaging the international faculties in teaching and research should also be promoted. And the next key point is startup enabling the institutional infrastructure. Creation of pre-incubation and incubation facilities for nurturing innovation and startup in HEI's institutions should be undertaken. So incubation and innovation need to be organically interlinked. Without innovation, new enterprises are unlikely to succeed. Kandipa innovation irundha nama succeed panna mudiyum. So the goal of the effort should be to link innovation to enterprises to financial success. So all HEIs are advised to create facilities within their institution for supporting pre-incubation. For example, IIC, that is Institution Innovation Council, which is available in our institution also, as per the guidelines of MHRD's Innovation Cell, EDC, IEDC, then New Generation IEDC, Innovation Cell, Startup, and student clubs, and so many things are there. So incubators and acceleration by mobilizing resources from internal and external sources are also applicable. And this pre-incubation and incubation facility should be accessible 24/7 to students and staff and faculty of all disciplines and departments across the institutions. Pre-incubation facilities may or may not be a separately registered entity or a special purpose vehicle, but the incubation cum technology commercialization is recommended. So it should be a separate entity, preferably registered under Section 8 of Company Act 2013 or society registered under Society Registration Act with independent government structure. So this will allow more freedom to incubators in decision making with less administrative hassles for executing the programs related to innovation, IPR, and startup. Moreover, this will have better accountability towards investors supporting the incubation facility. HAIs may offer mentoring and other relevant services through pre-incubation and incubation units, in turn for fees, equity sharing, and zero payment basis. The modalities regarding equity sharing in startups supported through these units will depend upon the nature of the services offered. Now let's see the nurturing innovations and startups. HAIs are expected to establish process and mechanism for easy creation and nurturing of startup enterprises by students, either UG, PG or PhD, and staff including temporary and project staff, faculty, alumni, and potential startup applicants even from outside the institutions. While defining their process, institution will ensure to achieve following. For example, incubation support, offer access to pre-incubation and incubation facility to startup by students, staff, and faculty for mutually acceptable time. So in case an institute doesn't have a dedicated faculty or infrastructure of its own, then it may reach out to nearest incubation facilities in other HAs in order to facilitate access to their students, staff, and faculty. And this will allow the licensing of IPR from institute to startup. Ideally, students and faculty members intending to initiate a startup based on the technology developed or co-developed by them or the technology owned by the institute should be allowed to take a license of said technology on easy terms, either in terms of equity in the venture or license fees and a royalty to avoid the early stage financial burden. And this will allow setting up a startup, including social startups, and working part-time for the startups while studying. And HAs may allow students and staff to work on their innovative projects and setting up startups, work intern part-time in startups, and while studying and also in working. Both faculty and students can work on this startups. And student entrepreneurs may earn credits for working on innovative prototypes and business models. Institutes may need to develop clear guidelines to formalize this mechanism. And the student inventors may also be allowed to opt for startup in place of their mini project or major project also, seminars and summer trainings. So the area in which the student wants to initiate a startup may be interdisciplinary or multidisciplinary. அதே பிரான்ச்ல தான் பண்ணணும்ங்கிற அவசியம் கிடையாது. மற்ற டிசிப்ளின்லயும் சேர்த்து அவங்க ஸ்டார்ட் அப்ல இனிஷியேட் பண்ணிக்கலாம். So however, the student must describe how they will separate and clearly distinguish their ongoing research activities as a student from the work being conducted at the startup. And the students who are under incubation but are pursuing some entrepreneurial ventures while studying should be allowed to use their address in the institute to register their company with the due permission from the institution. So, institution கிட்ட இருந்து பர்மிஷன் வாங்கிட்டு நம்மளுடைய காலேஜோட அட்ரஸ் வச்சு நம்ம அவங்க என்ன பண்ணிக்கலாம் கம்பெனி ரெஜிஸ்டர் பண்ணிக்கலாம். Then student entrepreneurs should be allowed to sit for examination even if their attendance is less than the minimum permissible stage with due permission from the HAs should allow their students to take a semester or year break and to work on their startup and rejoin academic to complete the course. So faculties are year break எடுத்துக்கலாம், students are இருந்தாலும் semester and year break எடுத்துட்டாலும் எடுத்துக்கலாம். Okay, then student entrepreneurship may earn academic credits for their efforts while creating an enterprise. So institute should set up a review committee for review of startup by students, and based on the progress made, it may consider giving appropriate credit for academics. The institute should explore provision of accommodation to the entrepreneurs within the campus for some period of time. And it will allow the faculty and staff to take off for a semester or year or even more depending on the decision of the review committee constituted by the institute as sabbatical leave or unpaid leave, casual leave, earned leave, and for working on startups and come back. Institution should consider allowing use of its resource to faculty, students, staff wishing to establish startup as a full-time effort. The seniority and other academic benefits during such periods will be preserved for such a staff or faculty. To start a part-time or full-time MS or MBA or PGDM courses, that is innovation, entrepreneurship and venture development programs, where one can get degree while incubating and nurturing a startup company. So IICT has already issued guidelines for a similar program, and institute can facilitate the startup activities, technology development by allowing students, faculty and staff to use institute infrastructures and facilities as per the choice of the potential entrepreneur in some terms. For example, for a short term or 6 months or 1 year part-time entrepreneurship training or mentorship support on regular basis. Similarly, they can provide. And facilitation in a variety of areas, including technology development, ideation, creativity, design thinking, final raising, and financial management, cash flow management, and new venture planning, business development, product development, and social entrepreneurship. So, and then marketing, brand development, and human resource management, as well as law and regulation impacting a business. And institute may also link the startups to other seed fund providers. For example, angel funds or venture funds, or itself may set up a seed fund once the incubation activities mature. So licensed institute IPR should also be developed, and in return of the services and facilities, institute may take 2% to 9.5% of equity or stake in the startup company based on the brand used and the faculty contribution, support provided, and use of the institute's IPR. A limit of 9.5% is suggested so that the institute has no legal liability arising out of startup. The institute should normally take much lower equity share. Its full-time faculty staff have for substantial shares, and other factors for considerations would be space, infrastructure, mentorship support, seed funds, support of accounts, legal and patents, and so on. So for staff and faculty, institute can take no more than 20% of the shares of the staff. Faculty takes while drawing full salary from the institution. However, this share will be within 9.5% cap of the company shares, and no restrictions on shares that the faculty or staff can take, and as long as they do not spend more than 20% of the office time on the startup in advisory or consultative role, and do not compromise their existing academic and administrative work and focus. In case the faculty holds the executive or managerial position for more than 3 months in a startup, then they will go on sabbatical leave without pay or pay on the leave. So in case of compulsory equity model, startups may be given for a cooling period of 3 months to use the incubation services on rental basis to take a final decision based on satisfactory of services offered by the institute or incubator. In that case, during the cooling period, institute cannot force startup to issue equity of the first day of granting incubation support. The institute should also provide services based on mixed equity, fee-based and zero payment model. So a startup may choose to avail only the support and not seed funding by the institute on rental basis. So institute could extend this startup facility to alumni of the institute as well as the outsiders. And participation in startup related activities needs to be considered as a legitimate activity of faculty in addition to teaching, R&D projects and industrial and management duties, and they must be considered by evaluating the annual performance of the faculty. Every faculty may be encouraged to mentor at least one startup. Product development and commercialization as well as participating of nurturing of startup would be now added bucket of faculty duties, and each faculty would choose a mix and match of these activities. And institutions may also need to update or change performance evaluation policies for faculty and staff, and institute should ensure that at no stage any liability occur to it because of any activity of any startup. Whereas student or faculty startup policy is pre-existing in an institute, then the institute may consider modifying their policy in spite of these guidelines. Now let's move on to product ownership, right, for technologies developed at institute. When institute faculties funds are used substantially, or when IPR is developed as a part of curriculum or academic activity, IPR is to be jointly honored by inventors and the institute. Inventors and institute could together license the product IPR to any commercial organization, with the inventors having the primary. License fees could be either a mix of upfront fees or one-time technology transfer fees, royalty as a percentage of sale price, and shares in the company licensing the product. An institute may not be allowed to hold an equity as per the current start. And if one or more of the inventors wish to incubate a company and license the product to this company, the royalties would be no more than 4% of the sale price, preferably 1 to 2%, unless it is pure software product. So if it is shares in the company, shares will again be 1% to 4%. For a pure software product licensing, there may be a revenue sharing to be mutually decided between the institute and the incubated company. Right. So on the other hand, if product and IPR is developed by innovators, not using any institute faculties or facilities, outside office hours or not as part of curriculum by student, then product and IPR will be entirely owned by inventors in proportion to the contributions made by them. So in this case, inventors can decide to license the technology to third parties or use the technology the way they deem fit. If there is a dispute in ownership, a minimum 5-member committee consisting of 2 faculty members having developed sufficient IPR and translated to commercialization, and 2 of the institute alumni industry experts having experience in technology commercialization, and 1 legal advisor with experience in IPR will examine the issue after meeting the inventors and help them settle, and hopefully to everybody's satisfaction. Institute can use alumni or faculty of other institutes as members if they cannot find sufficiently experienced alumni and faculty of their own. So institute IPR cell and incubation center will only be a coordinator or facilitator for providing services to faculty, staff, and students. They will have no say on how the invention is carried out, how it is patented, or how it is to be licensed. If the institute is to pay for patent filing, they can have a committee which can examine whether the IPR is worth patenting. So the committee should consist of faculty who have experience and excelled in technology translation. If inventors are using their own funds of non-institute funds, then they alone should have a say in the patenting. All institutes' decision-making body with respect to incubation, IPR, technology licensing will consist of faculty and experts who have excelled in technology translation. Other faculty in the department or institute will have no say, including head of department, head of the institutes, deans or registers. And interdisciplinary research and publication on startup and entrepreneurship should be promoted by the institutions. And the next activity is organizational capacity and human resources and incentives. So institute should recruit staff that having a strong innovation and entrepreneurial industrial experience, behavior, and attitude. This will help in fostering the I&D culture, that is innovation and entrepreneurial culture. And to achieve better engagement of the staff in entrepreneurial activities, institutional policy on career development of staff should be developed with constant upskilling. Faculty and departments of the institutes have to work in coherence, and cross-departmental linkages should be strengthened through shared faculty and cross-faculty teaching, and research in order to gain maximum utilization of internal resources and knowledge. Periodically, some external subject matter experts such as guest lecturers or alumni can be engaged for strategic advice and bringing in skills which are not available internally. Faculty and staff should be encouraged to do courses in innovation, entrepreneurship management, and venture development. In order to attract and retain right people, Institute should develop academic and non-academic incentives and reward mechanism for all staff and stakeholders that actively contribute and support entrepreneurship agenda and activities. So the reward system for the staff may include sabbatical leaves, office and the lab space for entrepreneurial activities, reducing teaching loads, awards, trainings. And the recognition of stakeholders may include offering use of faculties and services, strategy, and share the risk as guest teachers, fellowship, and associates. A performance matrix should be developed and used for evaluation of annual performance, as is done now. Now let's see the creating innovation pipeline and pathways for entrepreneurs at institute. To ensure exposure of maximum students to innovation and pre-incubation activities at their early stage, and to support the pathway from ideation to innovation to market, mechanisms should be devised at institutional level. So spreading awareness among students, faculty, and staff about the value of the entrepreneurship and its role in career development and employability should be a part of the institutional entrepreneurial agenda. Students and staff should be taught that innovation, that is technology, process, or business innovation, is a mechanism to solve the problems of the society and consumers. Entrepreneurs should innovate with focus on the market. And students should be encouraged to develop entrepreneurial mindset through experimental learning by exposing them to training to cognitive skills. Design, for example, design thinking, critical thinking. And this can be done by inviting first generation local entrepreneurs or experts to address young minds. So initiatives like ideas and innovation competition, hackathon, workshop, boot camps, seminars, conferences, exhibitions, mentoring by academic and industry personnel through real life challenges, awards, recognition should be routinely organized. இது எல்லாமே நம்ம இன்ஸ்டிடியூஷன்ல நடந்துட்டு இருக்குங்கிறது உங்க எல்லாருக்குமே நல்லா தெரியும். So to prepare the students for creating the startup through the education, integration of education activities with entrepreneurship related activities should be done. So the institute should link their startup and companies with the wider entrepreneurial ecosystem and by providing support to students who show potential in pre-startup phase. Connecting student entrepreneurs with the real life entrepreneurs will help the students in understanding the real challenges which may be faced by them while going through the innovation funnel and will increase the probability of success. So the institute should establish an institutional innovation council as per the guidelines of MHRD, and for strengthening innovation funnel in the institute, access to financing must be open for the potential entrepreneur. For networking, events must be organized to create a platform for budding entrepreneurs to meet the inventors and pitch their ideas. And it should also provide business incubation facilities, that is in premises at a subsidized cost. Laboratories, research facilities, IT services, training, mentoring should be accessible to new startups. So culture needs to be promoted to understand that money is not free and is risk capital. The entrepreneur must utilize these funds and return. While funding is taking risk on the entrepreneur, it is an obligation of the entrepreneur to make every effort possible to prove that funding agency did right in funding. So institute must develop a reckoner of the innovation toolkit, which must kept on the home page on the institute website to answer the doubts and queries of the innovators and enlisting the faculties available in the institute. Now let's see some of the norms for faculty startup. So for better coordination of the entrepreneurial activities, norms for faculty to do startup should be created by the institutes. So only those technologies should be taken for faculty startup, which originate from within the same institute. And role of faculty may vary from being an owner or mentor, consultant, or as on board member of the startup. So institute should work on developing policy, that is on conflicts of interest, to ensure that the regular duties of the faculty do not suffer owing to his involvement in the startup activities. So faculty startup may consist of faculty members along with or with students, or with the faculty of other institutes, or with alumni, or with other entrepreneurs. Then in case of faculty and staff holds the executive and the managerial position for more than 3 months in startup, they will go to sabbatical leave, as I said earlier. And the faculty must clearly separate or distinguish ongoing research at the institute from the work conducted at the startup and company. Research in the vera, startup company in the vera. So in case of selection of faculty startup by an outside national or international accelerator, a maximum leave of 1 semester or a year, or even more depending upon the decision of the review committee constituted by the institute, may be permitted to the faculty. Faculty must not accept any kind of gifts from the startups. And faculty must not involve any research staff or other staff of the institute in activities of the startup. And human subjected related research in startup should get clearance from ethics committee of the institutions. Now, pedagogy and learning interventions for entrepreneurship development. A diversified approach should be adopted to produce desirable learning outcomes, which should include cross-disciplinary learning using mentor, lab, case studies, or games in place of traditional lecture-based delivery. Students, clubs, and bodies or departments must be created for organizing competitions, boot camps, workshops, awards, and these bodies should be involved in institutional strategy to ensure that the enhancement of the students' thinking and responding ability. Institute should start annual innovation and entrepreneurship award to recognize outstanding ideas, successful enterprises and contributors for promoting innovation and enterprises ecosystem within the institute. For creating awareness among the students, the teaching methods should include case studies on business failures and real life experience report by startup. Tolerating and encouraging failures, and our systems are not designed for tolerating and encouraging failures. So, for example, failures need to be elaborately discussed and debated to invite that failure is a part of life, thus helping in reducing the social stigma associated with it. And very importantly, this should be a part of the institute's philosophy and culture. Innovation champion should be nominated from within the students, faculty, and staff for each department or stream of study. Entrepreneurship education should be imparted to students at curricular, co-curricular, or extracurricular level through elective or short-term or long-term courses on innovation, entrepreneurship, or venture development. Validated learning outcomes should be made available to the students. Integration of expertise of the external stakeholders should be done in the entrepreneurship education to evolve a culture of collaboration and engagement with external environment. So in the beginning of every academic session, institute should conduct an induction program about the importance of I&E so that freshly inducted students are made aware of this entrepreneurial agenda of the institute and available support system. Curriculum for the entrepreneurship education should be continuously updated based on entrepreneurship research outcomes. So this should also include case studies on failures. And industry linkages should be leveraged for conducting research and survey on trends in technology, research, innovation, and market intelligence. Sensitization of students should be done for their understanding on expected learning outcome. Student inventors, startup experts must be engaged in a dialogue process while developing the strategy so that it becomes need-based. Customized teaching and training material should be developed for startup, and it must be noted that not everyone can become an entrepreneur. The entrepreneur is a leader who would convert an invention successfully into product. Others may join the leader and work for the startup. எல்லாராலையும் சக்சஸ்ஃபுல் ஆண்டர்பிரனரா மாற முடியாது. என்கிட்ட இருக்கிற இன்னோவேஷன் ஐடியாவை நல்ல ப்ராடக்டா மாத்தி அதை எந்த அளவுக்கு நான் சக்சஸ்ஃபுல்லா கொண்டு வர முடியுதோ அப்ப அவங்க மட்டும்தான் ஆண்டர்பிரினரா மாற முடியும். மத்தவங்க அவங்களுக்கு கூட ஹெல்ப் பண்ணிக்கலாம். So it is important to understand that entrepreneurship is about risk taking. கண்டிப்பா no doubt in it. Entrepreneurshipங்கிறது ரிஸ்க் தான். மற்றபடி நான் நார்மலா வேலைக்கு போற 1ஆம் தேதி ஆச்சு அப்படின்னா நம்ம சேலரி வாங்குறோம் அப்படிங்கறதெல்லாம் வேற. ஓகேவா? Now let's move on to calibration and collaboration and co-creation and business relationship and knowledge exchange. Stakeholders engagement should be given a prime importance to the entrepreneurial agenda of the institute. So the institute should find potential parameters and resource organization, micro and other remedial aspects like entrepreneurs, like social entrepreneurs and schools and alumni and the professional bodies and entrepreneurs to support entrepreneurship for the science of programs. So at this end of the session, I'll tell you some of the innovative ideas which can be done, which may be useful to your project also. And to encourage co-creation and bidirectional flow exchange of knowledge, people should be ensured that between institutes, for example, such as incubators and science parks, institutes should organize networking events for better engagement of collaborators and should open up the opportunities for staff, faculty, and students, and to allow the constant flow of ideas and knowledge through meetings, workshops, lectures, and so on. Mechanisms should be developed by the institute to capitalize on the knowledge gained through these collaborations. Care must be taken to ensure that events don't become an end goal. So first focus of the incubator should be to create successful venture. So the institute should develop policy and guidelines for forming and managing the relationship with external stakeholders, including private industries. So knowledge of exchange through collaboration and partnership should be made a part of the institutional policy and institutes. And this institute must provide support mechanism and guidance for creating, managing, and coordinating the relations. So through formal and informal mechanisms such as internship, teaching and research exchange programs, clubs, social gathering, faculty, staff, and students of the institute should be given the opportunities to connect with their external environment. So connect of the institute with the external environment must be leveraged in the form of absorbing information and experience from the external ecosystem. So single point of contact, that is SPOC mechanism. So SPOC mechanism should be created in the institute for students. And faculty and collaborators and partners and other stakeholders to ensure access to the information. So any information should be accessible by all the students and the faculty. So mechanism should be devised by the institutions to ensure maximum exploitation of entrepreneurial opportunities with industrial and commercial collaborators. 1 second, I will start sharing my screen. And lastly, we will move on to entrepreneurial impact assessment. So the impact assessment of the institute or entrepreneurial initiatives such as pre-incubation, incubation, entrepreneurship education should be performed regularly using well-defined evaluation parameters. Monitoring and evaluation of knowledge and exchange initiatives, engagement of all departments and faculty, the entrepreneurial teaching and learning should be assessed. The number of startups created and support system provided at the institutional level and satisfaction of participants, new business relations created by the institute should be recorded and used for impact assessment. And formulation of strategy and impact assessment should go hand in hand, and the information on the impact of the activities should be actively used while developing and reviewing the entrepreneurial strategy. Impact assessment for measuring the success should be in terms of sustainable social and financial and technological impact in the market. Okay, now let's see some of the innovative ideas which can be done by done at students levels. For example, first starting was sliding ceiling fans. And another innovative idea done by student is wheelchair convertible to crutches. ஒரு wheelchair வந்து எல்லா ஃப்ளோர்லயும் ஈஸியா வந்து போக முடியாது. ஒரு ஸ்டார்ஸ் வந்தது அப்படின்னா அதை ஈஸியா என்ன பண்ணிக்கணும், ஃபோல்ட் பண்ணி ஒரு crutches கன்வெர்ட் பண்ணிட்டு so that it can be taken easily on stairs as well as on the flat surface. எங்க வேணாலும் கன்வெர்ட் பண்ணிக்கிற மாதிரியான wheelchair. And bulb remover, CFL பல்பெல்லாம் நம்ம வீட்டுல ரிமூவ் பண்ணணும் அப்படின்னா எவ்வளவு சிரமப்படுவாங்க அப்படிங்கிறது உங்களுக்கு நல்லா தெரியும். ஸோ அதை ரிமூவ் பண்றதுக்கு ஒரு கிளச் யூஸ் பண்ணி நின்ன இடத்துல இருந்து ஈஸியா பல்ப் ரிமூவ் பண்ணலாம். ஓகேவா? ஸோ ஹேண்ட் ராட் வித் கிளச் அண்ட் கிளாஸ்ப் யூஸ் பண்ணணும் அப்படின்னா we can easily remove the bulb. அண்ட் ஆட்டோமேட்டிக் பிளேட் ஸ்விங்கிங் சீலிங் ஃபேன் சொன்னோம். அது இல்லாம இப்ப கார்ல பாத்தீங்க அப்படின்னா கார்பன் டை ஆக்சைடு லெவலோ ரொம்ப கம்மியாச்சு அப்படின்னா சின்ன குழந்தைங்க அந்த காருக்குள்ள மாட்டிட்டாங்க அப்படின்னா டெத் ஆகிறது நிறைய நியூஸ்ல பாப்பீங்க. ஸோ அப்ப அதை இண்டிகேட் பண்றதுக்கு ஆக்சிஜன் ஆர் கார்பன் டை ஆக்சைடு லெவல் இண்டிகேட்டர்ஸ் ப்ரொடியூஸ் பண்ணலாம். தென் எலக்ட்ரானிக் பர்ஸ் வித் பேர்ட் வாட்ச், பாஸ்வேர்ட் ப்ரொடெக்ட், ஒரு பர்ஸ்க்கு வந்து பாஸ்வேர்டு கொடுத்து அந்த பாஸ்வேர்ட் கொடுத்தாதான் அந்த பர்ஸ் ஓப்பன் ஆச்சு அப்படின்னா இந்த தெஃப்ட் நடக்கிறதெல்லாம் நம்ம என்ன பண்ணிக்கலாம், அவாய்ட் பண்ணிக்கலாம். இந்த பஸ்ல பாத்தீங்க அப்படின்னா ஸ்டெப்ஸ்ல போயிட்டே இருப்பாங்க. ஸ்டெப்ஸ்ல போகும்போது அதுல கீழே விழுந்து எத்தனை ஸ்டூடெண்ட்ஸோ இல்ல மத்த பீப்புள்ஸ் இறக்குறத வந்து நியூஸ்ல பார்த்துட்டு இருப்போம். ஸோ அப்போ பஸ்ல யாராவது இருந்தாங்க அப்படின்னா மெக்கானிசம் விச் வில் நாட் அலோ த பஸ் டு மூவ். அங்க இதுல யாராவது நின்னாலே பஸ் வந்து மூவ் ஆகாத மாதிரி நம்ம என்ன பண்ணிக்கலாம், we can create a step lock system. And reminding the owner if the keys are forgotten in vehicle. கார்லயே கீயை வச்சுட்டு போயிட்டாங்க அப்படின்னா கார் கரெக்டா வாய்ப்பு இருக்கு, அது டூ வீலரா இருந்தாலும் சரி. ஸோ அப்ப கீயை வச்சுட்டு போயிட்டாங்க அப்படின்னா அந்த டைம்ல நம்ம ஓனருக்கு ஒண்ணு போனுக்கோ இல்ல அலார்ம் மாதிரியோ நம்ம என்ன பண்ணலாம் கொடுத்து அவங்கள அலர்ட் பண்ணலாம். தென் மொபைல் போன் வித் இன்பில்ட் சார்ஜர், இது வந்து நம்ம பாத்தீங்க அப்படின்னா இந்த இடத்துக்கு போனாலும் சார்ஜரை தூக்கிட்டே போற மாதிரி இருக்கும். ஸோ அதை அவாய்ட் பண்றதுக்கு நம்ம மொபைல்லையே ஒரு சார்ஜர் பின் அவைலபிளா இருந்துச்சு அப்படின்னா தேவைப்படுறப்ப நம்ம என்ன பண்ணிக்கலாம், அதை எக்ஸ்டெண்ட் பண்ணிட்டு எங்க வேணுமோ அங்க பண்ணிக்கலாம். அதே மாதிரி ஏர் கண்டிஷனிங் சிஸ்டம் இன் ஸ்கூட்டர்ல போகும்போது நமக்கு வெயில சம்மர்ல போறவங்களுக்கு தான் தெரியும் அதோட கஷ்டம். ஸோ அப்ப டூ வீலர்ஸ்ல போகும்போது அவங்களுக்கும் கூலிங் சிஸ்டம் வேணும் அப்படின்னா ஒரு ஜாக்கெட் வச்சுட்டு அது ஆட்டோமேட்டிக்கா நீ எப்ப ஸ்கூட்டர் ஸ்டார்ட் பண்றீங்களோ அப்ப கூலிங் ஏர் போச்சு அப்படின்னா you can maintain your body in a cool condition. ஸோ இந்த மாதிரி பேஷன்ஸ் நீங்க நிறைய டெவலப் பண்ணிட்டே இருந்தோம்னா டெஃபினெட்லி சி ஒரு இந்தியாவுடைய வளர்ச்சி வந்து நேரா கண்ணுக்கு நேரா நம்ம பார்க்கலாம். With this, I complete the session. If you have any doubts, you can conclude. Gayatri ma'am. Karthikeyan sir. Ma'am. We can proceed. Gayatri ma'am.
Madam.
You can proceed ma'am. Okay.
A very good morning to all. On behalf of our institution, I extend a really hearty vote of thanks to our resource person, Mr. P.Kavitha, Associate Professor, Head of the Department, ECE, for giving this webinar session. And totally we had an opportunity to hear your thoughts, and this will surely be going to encourage us in our future events. It was very, very useful, informative, ma'am. And also, I would like to thank our principal, faculty friends, students, participants, for making this session as a grand success. Once again, I thank one and all present here. All your explanations and words are so beautiful, ma'am. It was very, very useful and informative, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Thank you.